Emeka, wake up.
What? What time is it?
The phone, it rang again. Did you hear it?
Go back to sleep, Ada.
You're not listening. She was smiling.
Let me tell you something. There are things a husband notices that he wishes he never did. The way a laugh sounds different at midnight. The way eyes go soft for a split second before a phone screen goes dark. The way someone says wrong number too quickly, too smoothly, like they rehearsed it. My name is Emeka Okafor. I'm 38 years old. I live in a 3-bedroom flat in Lekki, Lagos. I have a good job at a telecommunications company. I drive a 2019 Honda. I pay my tithe. I remember birthdays. And for 11 years, I believed my marriage was solid. I was wrong, but not in the way I thought. What I'm about to tell you is not a story about a cheating wife. It's worse than that, and it's more complicated than that. By the time we reach the end, you're going to go back and replay every single sign I missed, and you're going to understand why I missed them. My mommy said I can't reach 1,000 subscribers in 30 days. Please help me prove her wrong by clicking subscribe right now. And tell me where in the world are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to know. Let's start from the beginning. Ngozi and I met at a youth corpus dinner in Abuja back in 2012. She was laughing at something her friend said, and I remember thinking that laugh is too big for this room, too alive, too much. I wanted to be close to it. We dated for 2 years, married in 2014, moved to Lagos in 2016 when my company transferred me. She was a pharmacist, smart woman, detail-oriented. The kind of person who remembered expiry dates on everything, food, medicine, promises. She did not let things slip. Our life was not flashy, but it was full. Saturday mornings, she made akara and pap, not the kind from a sachet, the real kind where the beans are soaked overnight and blended fresh. The kitchen smelled like groundnut oil and something warm and old. She had a habit of humming while she cooked. Always the same song, an old Igbo lullaby her mother taught her. She never sang the words, just the melody. We had arguments like every couple over money, over her mother's visits, over the fact that I left my shoes by the door instead of the rack. Normal things. But we always came back to each other by nightfall. That was our rule. Don't let the sun go down on anger. It wasn't a Bible verse to us. It was survival code. We had seen too many Lagos couples drift apart in slow motion, too proud to speak first. Life was manageable, predictable, good. Then the midnight call started. It was a Thursday. I know it was Thursday because I had a presentation the next morning and I'd stayed up past midnight reviewing slides. I'd just turned the light off when I heard it. Her phone vibrating on the bedside table. Not a message buzz, a call, long, insistent. Ngozi was asleep, or so I thought, but she reached for it fast, too fast for someone who was sleeping. She glanced at the screen, pressed decline, and placed it face down. Who was that? I asked. Wrong number, she said. Eyes already closed again. I lay there in the dark for a moment. Wrong number. At 12:47 a.m. I told myself it meant nothing. Lagos is a city that doesn't sleep. Business contacts, night owls, confused callers. It happened. I went to sleep. The second time was the following Tuesday. Same hour, around midnight. But this time, I was already half awake. I'd gotten up to use the bathroom and just returned to bed. Her phone lit up the ceiling for 3 full seconds before she grabbed it. She didn't decline this time. She looked at the screen and I saw it just for a moment. 1 second, maybe two. She smiled. Not a big smile. Not the one I fell in love with at that dinner in Abuja. Something smaller, private, like a secret pressing against the inside of her cheek. Then the smile disappeared. She declined the call, put the phone under her pillow this time. Ngozi. She said nothing. Gozi. Who keeps calling? Emeka, please. I have a 6 o'clock shift tomorrow. That's not what I asked. Long silence. It's a customer from the pharmacy. He's confused about his medication schedule. He keeps calling at odd hours. I've told him to call during working hours, but he's elderly, he forgets. It was a good answer. Too good. Detailed, compassionate, slightly irritating in just the right way, so I'd feel guilty for pushing. I know my wife. I know how she structures an explanation when she wants it to land. I said, okay, but I lay awake for a long time after that. Here is what I started noticing. The calls always came between midnight and 1 a.m. Never before, never after. Always that window. She never left the room to take them. She always declined them, but not immediately. She'd hold the phone for 2 or 3 seconds first, like she was reading something on the screen, like she was deciding. And twice more, in the weeks that followed, I caught that smile. It wasn't desire. I want to be clear about that. I've seen the way Ngozi looks when she's attracted to something. There's warmth in it, openness. This smile was different, tighter, more like relief than pleasure. I started sleeping lighter. My body knew something was off before my mind was willing to accept it. I'd jolt awake at 12:30 even when the phone hadn't rung yet, like a soldier waiting for a sound he's heard before. One night I pretended to be deeply asleep, slow breathing, body heavy, the whole performance. The phone rang at 12:52. She reached for it, looked at the screen, and this time she got up. She walked out of the bedroom. My heart was beating so hard, I was certain she could hear it from the corridor. I counted. She was gone for 4 minutes. I know because I was staring at the red digits on the alarm clock like they were the only real thing in the room. When she came back, she moved carefully. She thought I was sleeping. She slid back under the covers and lay very still. I could hear her breathing. It wasn't the breathing of someone who just spoke to a confused elderly patient about medication. It was the breathing of someone managing something. Ada, I said to my sister the next evening, if your husband was getting calls at midnight and smiling at his phone, what would you think? Ada didn't even pause. I think he was having an affair. And if he had an explanation, Emeka. She looked at me directly. There's always an explanation. The question is whether it's true. I want you to understand what not knowing does to a person. It doesn't feel like suspicion at first. It feels like fog, like you're looking at your own life through smoked glass. Everything is familiar but slightly shifted. The colors are the same, but the light is wrong. I started watching Ngozi differently, not with anger, with attention. The kind of attention you give to a document you're trying to catch an error in. Quiet, careful, patient. She was normal, completely, disturbingly normal. She made the akara on Saturday. She hummed the same lullaby. She argued with me about the shoes by the door. She laughed at my jokes, the real laugh, not a performance. But twice, I noticed her phone screen reflected in the kitchen window while she was washing dishes. She was typing quickly, then deleting, not sending, deleting. Who types a message at length and then deletes it without sending? Someone having a conversation, they can't afford to have. I started sleeping in fragments. 2 hours here, 90 minutes there. My eyes felt like sandpaper. I couldn't concentrate at work. I snapped at a junior colleague for something minor and felt ashamed of myself afterward. One morning, Ngozi looked at me over her coffee cup. "You look terrible," she said, not unkindly, with genuine concern. "I'm not sleeping well. Do you want me to get you something from the pharmacy? Melatonin, maybe?" The irony of her offering me sleep medication while she was the reason I couldn't sleep, I almost laughed. "I'm fine," I said. She held my gaze a bit too long, like she was trying to read the part of me I was hiding. I held it back. I looked away first. Then came the conversation that broke everything open. Her younger brother Chidi called on a Sunday afternoon. I could hear the call from the other room. Ngozi had him on speaker while she folded laundry. "How far that thing we discussed?" Chidi asked. "I'm handling it," Ngozi said. "Auntie Precious is getting impatient." A pause. A long one. "Tell her I said give me time. I know what I'm doing." "Ngozi, if this thing scatter." "It won't scatter. I said I'm handling it." End of call. I stood in the corridor with my back against the wall. Auntie Precious. I knew that name. Ngozi's mother's older sister. A difficult woman. Property somewhere in Enugu, a sharp tongue, and a long history of inserting herself into family matters that were not her business. But what did Auntie Precious have to do with midnight phone calls and secret smiles? I made a decision that night. I was going to find out, not by confronting Ngozi, not yet. She was too composed, too intelligent. A confrontation would give her time to construct something. I needed the truth before she had a chance to arrange it. My name is on the phone plan. We share a family account through my company staff package. I logged into the account portal the next morning from my office. Call logs, itemized, timestamp, duration, number. The midnight calls, they were all from the same number. And the calls were never longer than 90 seconds. Short, precise. I searched the number. Nothing on Google. No business listing. No social media trail. A private number, probably a secondary SIM, registered to no one traceable. But then I did something I hadn't considered. I looked at her outgoing calls. Ngozi called that same number, but she called it in the daytime, always between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m., her lunch break at the pharmacy, twice a week, sometimes 3 times. And those calls were longer. 12 minutes, 22 minutes, once, 37 minutes, 37 minutes. I sat at my desk and I stared at that number. A wrong number elderly patient confused about his medication does not get 37 minutes of your lunch break twice a week. I felt something collapse quietly inside me, not dramatically, the way an old building settles, not a crash, just a long, slow groan of the foundation giving. I called the number. 1 ring, 2, 3, it picked up. Silence on the other end. Then a voice, male, middle-aged, careful. "Hello? Who is this?" I asked. Another pause. "Who is this?" the voice said back. I hung up. My hands were completely steady. I don't know why. Maybe the body runs out of places to put panic after a certain point. I sat there for a long time. Then I typed the call duration data into a spreadsheet. Every call, every timestamp, both directions, daytime and midnight. And I noticed something. The daytime calls always happened on Tuesdays and Thursdays, without exception, like a shadow. The midnight calls, those happened the night after a daytime call was missed. Every single time she didn't call during lunch, the midnight call back came, like a system, like a protocol. This was not an affair. Affairs are messy, emotional, unpredictable. They bleed into odd hours for long conversations. They generate deleted messages full of feeling. This was organized. And suddenly, I wasn't thinking about betrayal anymore. I was thinking about something else entirely. I need you to understand, I am not a man who follows his wife. I believe in trust as a structure. I believe that a marriage without privacy is not a marriage, it's surveillance. But I was no longer operating on belief. I was operating on data. It was a Wednesday. She told me she had a late shift at the pharmacy, covering for a colleague who was ill. She'd covered late shifts before. It was believable. It was always believable with Ngozi. That was the terrifying thing. Nothing she did was unbelievable. I left the office at 4 p.m. and sat in my car 2 streets from the pharmacy. At 6:30, she walked out. She did not get into a taxi. She didn't take a bus. She walked 3 blocks east, turned into a quiet street lined with those old compound houses, the kind with peeling paint and large gates, and knocked on a door. A man opened it. Not a young man, maybe 60, heavy-set, grey at his temples. He looked both ways down the street before stepping back to let her in. She went inside. I sat in my car and I did not move for 2 hours. She came out at 8:47, alone. She flagged down a cab. I drove home first. I was in the bedroom pretending to read when I heard her key in the lock. She came in, saw me, smiled naturally. Late shift ran over, she said. Did you eat? I ordered something. Okay. She set her bag down, went to the bathroom, showered, came to bed. At 12:53, her phone rang. She looked at it, declined it, pulled me close. Emeka, I love you. You know that, right? I said. I know, but I was thinking about the gray-haired man and the way he looked both ways before letting my wife inside his house. I found out from Chidi, not because he told me willingly, because I drove to Surulere on a Friday evening, sat in his apartment, and told him I already knew everything. A bluff. A careful, deliberate bluff. Chidi cracked in 4 minutes. Emeka, listen, it was not my idea, and Ngozi was doing it to protect you. Protect me from what? He exhaled, looked at the ceiling. Auntie Precious, he said, has been trying to get your property, the one in Abuja, the one in your name that Ngozi's father helped you register before he died. I went very still. She found a lawyer, a man who specializes in, he paused, informal means, land disputes, title manipulation. He knows people in the land registry. She was going to file a claim that the property was acquired with family money and that you forged signatures. The room felt smaller. She gave Ngozi an ultimatum. Chidi continued. Convince Emeka to sign over a portion of the land, or she'd move forward with the legal process. She said she had enough people in place to make it very difficult for you. When did this start? 4 months ago. 4 months. The call started 4 months ago. The man Ngozi was meeting. I said slowly, who is he? Chidi looked at me. A lawyer. A legitimate one. She's been building a counter case. In secret. Because she didn't want to worry you, and because she was afraid if you confronted Auntie Precious directly, you'd make it worse. You know how you are, Emeka. He almost smiled. You go straight at things. She needed time to build something that would stop Precious completely, not just slow her down. I heard the words. I processed them. I thought about the 37-minute calls, the deleted messages she was drafting, strategy notes, and deleting them so they wouldn't be found if someone checked her phone. The scheduled Tuesday-Thursday calls, those were case review sessions. The midnight callbacks, those happened when she missed a session and the lawyer needed to reach her after hours. The smile when she saw the phone ring. Not desire, not guilt, relief. Every time that number appeared, it meant the case was progressing. It meant she was winning. She had been fighting for our home in silence for 4 months, and I had been in the next room constructing an entirely different story. I drove home and sat in the car outside our building for a long time. I thought about every cold look I'd given her, every short answer, every night I'd watched her sleep, with suspicion wound tight in my chest. I thought about the spreadsheet I'd made, color-coded, time-stamped, built from data I'd pulled from her phone plan without her knowledge. I thought about the way she'd pulled me close at midnight and said, "I love you. You know that, right?" While she was carrying all of this, alone, to protect me, I went upstairs. She was in the kitchen, the lullaby again low, almost under her breath, groundnut oil and something warm. She heard me coming and turned around, saw my face. She knew immediately. Ngozi always knew immediately. "Chidi called you," she said. It wasn't a question. "I went to him," I said. "I thought I stopped." She waited. "I thought you were. I couldn't finish it." She looked at me for a long moment. Not angry, not hurt. Something more complicated than that. "I know what you thought," she said quietly. "Ngozi, I saw it changing in you. The way you watched me, I knew." She turned back to the stove. "I almost told you so many times." "Why didn't you?" She was quiet for a moment. "Because you would have gone straight to Auntie Precious and made noise, and my lawyer said we needed silence. Any confrontation before the filing was ready would have tipped her off, and she'd have moved faster." She paused. "And because I was ashamed that someone in my family was trying to do this to us." "That's not your shame to carry." "I know," she said, "but I carried it anyway." I crossed the kitchen and stood behind her. She didn't turn around. "I'm sorry," I said. "For what?" "For the way I was looking at you." She was quiet. The lullaby had stopped. Then she said, "The filing goes in next week. My lawyer says Auntie Precious has no case. She was betting on us being too intimidated to fight back." She didn't know who she was dealing with. Ngozi made a small sound. Almost a laugh. Not quite. "No," she said. "She didn't." Auntie Precious's lawyer withdrew the claim 3 weeks after the counter-filing was submitted. When confronted with proper documentation, authenticated signatures, and a well-prepared opposing counsel, the informal means she'd been relying on evaporated. Apparently, they work best when the target doesn't know they're a target. Ngozi had made sure we were never that. The family found out eventually. These things always surface. There were phone calls, heated group messages, one terrible Sunday visit where voices were raised and a door was slammed. The kind of fracture that leaves marks even after it heals. Auntie Precious never apologized. I didn't expect her to. But something shifted in her eyes the one time I saw her afterward at a family gathering in December. She looked at Ngozi across the room, and I watched the calculation in her face, the quiet recognition that she had measured this woman incorrectly. She looked away first. As for me and Gozi, we talked, not just that night in the kitchen, but for weeks afterward, about the silence she'd kept, about the suspicion I'd built, about the way two people in the same bed can be living in entirely different stories without knowing it. It wasn't easy. Real things rarely are. She asked me once, "What was the moment? When did you first think something was wrong?" "The smile," I said. "When the phone rang and you smiled." She was quiet for a moment. Then I was smiling because he'd sent a voice note saying the judge assigned to the case was someone favorable. It meant we had a real chance. She looked at me. You saw hope on my face and read it as betrayal. I had nothing to say to that. There is a lesson somewhere in this story, but I don't want to spell it out for you. You're intelligent. You've been listening this whole time. What I will tell you is this. The night the final legal notice came, confirming that all claims against our property had been dismissed with prejudice, Ngozi was in the kitchen, making akara. Saturday morning, the lullaby was back, full and unguarded this time. Not just the melody, the words. I stood in the doorway and listened. I didn't ask her what the words meant. Some things you just let be what they are. And somewhere in Enugu, Auntie Precious picked up her phone to call a man who no longer had any reason to answer. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needed to hear it today. Subscribe if you haven't, and drop in the comments. Where in the world are you watching from? And tell me, have you ever discovered something about someone you loved that changed how you understood every year before it? See you in the next one.